The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here's Brandon.
Welcome back to Old Space Show. I'm Brandon, and this is my companion, Stephen.
Ahoy, hoy.
This series of Old Space Show has followed the intergalactic swashbuckling escape antics of Roach Blake and his ruffian crew in the first season of Blake 7. Today, we are discussing the 13th and final episode, Orac.
In this episode, Blake and his crew go on a life-saving mission to the planet Aristo, where they must stop Orac, a highly advanced computer, falling into the Federation's hands. But Servalan and Travis have located it too, and Blake is caught in a race against time for the second week in a row to save the lives of his crew.
This one is directed by, it says, I saw Michael E. Bryant and Vera Lorimer, but was it Vera Lorimer and Michael E. Bryant was the flashback stuff, or the stuff from last week?
I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely was. It was definitely a Vera Lorimer. For those of you who know Vera Lorimer's style, it was definitely a Vera Lorimer directed thing.
Right.
But yes, we alluded to this last week with the tie-in. Basically, Blake sitting Avon down says, "There, look at the screen right there, and I'll recap what happened for you and maybe the viewers too." It's kind of great that everything was recorded. They got a tape of the show is what they got. It's like the instant replay review almost in sports when they go to check out the replay. That's true. What we got here. Written by Terry Seven Nation Army, starring Gareth Thomas, Sally Nivette, Paul Darrow, Jan Chappell, Michael Keaton, David Jackson, Peter Tuddenham, Jacqueline Pierce, Stephen Grief, the cast of last week, but now Derek Farr, James Muir, Paul Kidd, and Tony Conter. Let's start with a Who watch, Stephen. Only James Muir, who was a very prolific extra in Doctor Who and many other BBC circles. He was in many different things. I was just watching the Sunmakers recently. He was in that. I think he shows up as a butler who gets murdered in Black Orchid and many other things. Once again, I just want to point out that is exactly off the top of my head. Yes, I haven't seen the movie Avatar, but I have seen James Muir be an extra in multiple BBC productions.
That's funny. You just watched the Sunmaker. I just watched the Sunmakers. That was one I watched when I was on vacation. One of my plane rides. I watched the Sunmakers.
Right.
I had it loaded up from my hard drive.
And why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
I was like, great. You know what? Let's see. Indianapolis to Phoenix. We'll do Sunmakers from this place to this place.
Yeah.
I did, what else did I, Happiness Patrol was one of them. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. That was.
Yeah, I put one from each doctor for the plane trips. Happiness Patrol, Tomb of the Cybermen, and, I just put The Awakening on there because I was like, well, if there's a two-parter, I'll throw it on there.
Why not? If you only got time for two half-hour episodes, it could be that one.
I went to The Awakening because I was like, yeah, you know what? I haven't watched this in a long time. So there we went with that. So we pick up from last week. As we talked about, they do a recap in the clever way as Zen is the replay machine. He picked up the broadcast from the previous week. And we're heading to Aristo, and to find Orac, which we've mentioned this before, but Terry Nation and his clever naming conventions for things.
Yes, as always.
'Cause
It's a thing. It's a thing that he does.
I'm going to say Orac now, folks, but when we get later to discussion of the episode, guess what it probably was short for? We'll see if you can guess. But so Jenna, this episode, in her like most relaxed and somewhat incidentally see-through clothes for the season.
It was.
She's having some
an
trouble.
Interesting costuming choice. Yeah.
There was a because she's starting to feel ill, and there's a scene where it's like a medium shot or something, and her and Callie walk right by the camera, and I was like, oh wow,
Yeah.
I think I just saw her nipple through that shirt.
You did.
And this isn't a case of like, oh well, it's HD now, and you can see it. No, this is still video. This is video.
It was streaming quality on BritBox, and I saw it. So
Yep, that's what I saw. And yeah, it's not like when I saw. There's a slasher movie called He Knows You're Alone. It's one of Tom Hanks' first movies.
Right.
And I always watched it. And if I came out on HD and I watched it, there's a scene where there's like a aerobics class or something, and like nobody's wearing bras. And I never noticed that before till HD. This was not the case. Not the case. So I was like, wow. If we see it here, they had to have seen it on set, right?
I think so, but then again, it was the 1970s, and things were different back then. Things were different in many ways.
Were we before the Mary what's her name complaints? But which she wouldn't have been complaining about this show. This is probably on later.
Exactly, yeah. Unless, So I don't ever recall legendary complainer Mary Whitehouse, who almost single-handedly took down Doctor Who for being too adult. I don't think she ever set her target for Blake 7.
Gotcha.
At least not that I've heard of it. So
okay, because that's I'm not sitting here being like, oh my gosh, how dare they show? I watch House of Dragon and stuff like that. I'm just.
You just don't expect to see it.
I'm not a church lady here. I'm just saying, like, I'm just like, oh wow, I did not expect this, and I know what the times are like. I know what TV was like back then. I was like, oh shoot, that was crazy. So yeah, she's having trouble. We have this old man on Aristo named Ensor, who is Ensor Senior. We met Ensor Junior last week.
Yep.
And he's in this like greenhouse lab type thing, which it looks like there's a set from Space 1999 that looks just like this.
Kind of reminds me, oddly enough, of 3 weeks ago, and I'm trying to think of the episode with T.P. McKenna where he's in that house with the car and everything, and it's just sort of like we're kind of introduced to him in the same way. Here he is in his eclectic weird lair, looking at his various different things in his collection, sometimes talking to himself, like Ensor is here. And I thought they were both very, very similar.
This is me and my curious curiosities here. I'm Ensor. This is Orac, and we'll be showing you plants today.
And we don't actually see Orac. That's a good, like, he's speaking to Orac, whatever this Orac thing is. And it's just sort of this unseen voice, also voiced by Derek Farr,
right?
In this episode and this episode only. And so it sort of leads on, and then there's later on, and there's a shot where it sort of goes to like the sort of monopticon floating eye thing. I think, oh, is that what Orac is and stuff? Because we see it a little bit later, but they sort of preserve the mystery. For quite a while through this episode as to what Orac is.
The mystery built last week. What is Orac? Orac as I die. But there's so we see this room, but we don't know exactly where this room is, right? Because it's revealed later that it's underground. It's not.
There's no establishing shot or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, we just assume they're going to come upon a building or how, like, what are those like factory mill places they always have in these shows.
There'll be some gas works or something like that. Yeah.
But Servalan and Travis are on foot, which is cool because he knows they're there, but he assumes hostile because they didn't make contact before they landed and were on the planet. So I thought that was a neat little touch of things. And there's like a trap door in the middle of like a beach that's on the other side of like a rock quarry.
I always like it when when BBC shows have to alter the environment that they're shooting on location, because they probably had to dig a hole.
Oh yeah,
to get that little trap door in there. And then there later on there's that little transporter pod, which when they first shot it, I thought, oh, is this actually there? Did they actually bring this thing out on location? That never happens in BBC science fiction, but they did. They did. Kudos to them.
Yeah, that and the trap door, they had to like dig and then build hinges to make it look believable. Like it's pretty interesting. And the underground tunnels and stuff look believable too. I don't know if those are definitely. They weren't in real caves, were they? I think
they was on real caves. Those
are real caves?
Either real caves or in Ealing, but I think
it's shot on film, so I always assume location. But
it
Blake 7, you never know.
It looked like real caves. I don't think it was Ealing, but I could be mistaken. I know you can sort of tell when it's a set, even when it's on Ealing, because the camera angles can afford to be a little more relaxed, I think. But I think things were kind of tight. They kind of shot everything pretty tight in this when that weird monster. They did a good job at sort of just, not shooting too much of the cheap monster, which was menacing Servalan in the body. You see her, like, the claw sort of come out and then like a little bit of a close-up, but we never saw the whole thing, which is probably good because I think it looked a little bit silly. But
gotcha. Yeah. Because you hear about the amphibians, but you don't see them. You know they're bad. You see arms and things like that, but yeah, smart move. Yeah. A thing I didn't think was smart. So Callie and Blake, they're the A squad. They get sent down to Aristo to check it out, but then we have the other four have this radiation sickness and are just stuck aboard the Liberator with it, and I'm like, really? This is the finale? Like, this is what they're giving them to do? It's just...
Well, it gives them, I suppose, it's not like, oh, well, let's just go down and see what Orac is. Like, there's an urgency now that is created. They're hoping that Ensor has drugs to cure radiation sickness. Luckily, he has tons. As if anyone, like, oh yeah, it's in the medicine cabinet. We keep those there all the time. What an amazing coincidence. So I can see why they did that, because otherwise they could just say, oh, let's go check out this Ensor guy and see what he has, and then there's no real incentive to help them at all. Although it's not much of a search. They just sort of ask him, do you have any drugs? Yeah, I got them. Okay. Well, we don't have to worry about that anymore, do we?
Cool. We came to the right person on the right planet in the right place.
Yep.
So yeah, I just conceptually, it's just like we're just gonna leave those four to just do what they do a lot of weeks.
Yeah.
Not give them. It just I guess it's if it's something on season. I mean, we're gonna reflect on it later, but like season 1, maybe they just couldn't figure out how to handle a cast of 6.
I think so. I mean, they ever really got it right in this whole season, properly, handing out enough for each cast member to do. I don't think they ever did. I think they came close with it for little bits here and there. I think Cygnus Alpha might be bad, but then again, the whole crew isn't there yet, so they are definitely split up onto 2 different planets, and we don't have Cal yet now. So ever since they actually became 7 with Zen, it doesn't feel like they've ever managed to give everyone enough to do.
Right. It's like they know what they want to do with Callie, but once Callie arrived and started getting used, Jenna became less.
Yeah.
And then there was something working when there was there was Jenna, Blake, Avon, and Villa, and then there was for a period it was just Jenna, Blake, Villa, or not Villa, but Avon.
Yeah,
and it seemed like there was something there, and then they get the whole crew and then Gan is I don't know what they need a muscle, the guy who's muscle, or. And then they never use him for that.
you can kind of tell that they sort of wrote the outline of the characters before they sort of knew what to do with them. They think, well, we need a big muscle guy, so that'll be Gan. We need sort of the lockbreaker, the rogue, so to speak. That's Villa. We kind of need the computer genius. There's Ava. We need the pilot. There's Jenna. We need the warrior. There's Callie, and then we need the leader, and there's Raj. And eventually you sort of like, well, Callie's a warrior. She could do the fighting. Raj would look weak. Blake would look weak if he couldn't do fighting himself. All of them have guns, so all of a sudden it's like, and Gan has a limiter, which we hear mentioned for the last time ever on the show last week.
Right.
So there's even something holding him back within the drama of the piece. So you kind of see that the writing is on the wall for poor Gan. There's an anecdote that he tells. I don't know if it's from this season or the next, where he comes to the producer, David Maloney, or the director, and says, and just with a number thing written down on a piece of paper, it says 5. It says, "What's this one? What's 5?" That's the number of lines I have in this episode. And it was like he could tell that like he's just not getting used at all in these shows, and it's and so of course when you need someone to be sick with radiation sickness, it's Gan, and he does nothing. And even Avon and Jenna at least sort of like, man the teleporter, and eventually Avon drags her down to the planet, drags Villa down to the planet at the very end because he's just sort of tired of waiting around. But it's not Gan that does that.
Yeah, and it's funny too. They keep pairing Blake with Callie when they obviously are wanting to craft some like love dynamic between him and Jenna. It's like, well, that's who you're sending. Okay,
yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
And they like Jenna got captured in last week's episode. Blake did not care.
No. No, I think the writers sort of gave up. This is probably not a storyline that we should be going down. So we'll just eliminate that right now.
So speaking of Blake and Callie going to the surface, Ensor and Orac, they have a phantasm ball that orders them around with their like the movie Phantasm, the little silver balls that they kill people in those movies. He's got one that talks to people here and guides them around the beach, and it's got that transporter that you talked about that comes up.
Yep.
And when he's talking about the ball that's guiding them, Blake says, "You should try and capture it. Perhaps Avon would like it as a pet." Like, that's a nice one, Blake.
Yeah.
That's a nice one. But yeah, they basically they meet in the underground with Ensor, and they quickly come to agreement that like we should do business together somehow. We got the fuel cells for your heart. I've got the radiation stuff for your people, and we got this Orac thing that I think I'm getting swindled out of.
Mm-hmm.
And Orac is a box-sized computer capable of tapping into any other computer containing Teriel cells and either controlling them or extracting information.
A giant box in like this road case that needs to be carried by 2 people.
Yep.
It's basically an iPhone 7. Let's face it.
It's bigger than their normal cooler they usually use when they go down to planets. It takes 2 people.
Yeah, but it's like which 2 people are going to care? You kind of get an impression. Maybe now we found something for Gan to do. He could be the one that carries Orac.
Nope. Yeah. Put him on his back and walk around with Orac. Like,
yeah.
Like like turn around, Gan. I'm not talking to you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yep. Oh my gosh. So there's also so Avon and Villa end up going down to Risto at one point, and there's a CSO shot of them when they're like, oh, you guys aren't really there.
No, it's bad. It's not a good shot.
It's like when we were in that forest with Travis and the Mutoid or whatever from a couple. I'm like, oh, that's a pickup shot.
Yep, and you get the impression that's exactly what happened here too.
Yeah, and it wasn't like they transported and they needed the effect. It was just them like chatting.
Yep. Yeah, they must either something went wrong with the effect on location, or they didn't have time to shoot it, or they ran out of light or something like that. I think that's I hope that wasn't a creative decision to think, you know what, we could just shoot that in here. I thought perhaps if Villa and Avon never actually showed up on location, then maybe that would explain it. But they do. They do at the end of the episode. So it didn't make sense for them to be there other than some mess up somewhere along the line.
Yeah, we're shy 30 seconds. Can you? Because it's not a long shot. They know they don't want to try to convince anybody for longer than they have to. So it must have been a mistake that they were fixing with that. But it's super obvious. But if we were watching it on like a 20-inch CRT back on broadcast.
Yeah.
In our homes, maybe we
would you have noticed
notice.
that much? Probably not.
Yeah, but we have to point it out because that's what we do.
That's what we do.
That's what we do. So the whole deal with Ensor seems all great till they get barricaded underground by Travis and Servalan's explosion. Amphibian even attacks down there, but Ensor, they find an escape, which is like, oh look, there's a ladder over there. After all this, and so they didn't really barricade well because I think it's the hatch they came down in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So good job,
it is.
Travis and Servalan.
I like though that I mentioned it before, the scene where Servalan gets accosted. Not really. It gets attacked by the creature. Mm-hmm. I like that because Jacqueline Pierce does such a great job at like. She's experiencing. we've never really seen her experience fear before. Like she's proper terrified,
right?
For like a few seconds, and then Travis sort of comes in. Are you okay? And stuff like, yes, obviously. And says, oh, do you want me to lead the way? No, you can follow. Like she sort of like immediately sort of gets her stiff upper lip back up. Says, no, I'm in charge here. I might have had a momentary lapse there where I was attacked by the strange creature, but I am now back and I am in charge, and you will do the following again. And that slight bit of vulnerability, Jacqueline Pierce made her not pathetic, but certainly like, she made it look like she had let her guard down and regretted doing so, and immediately sort of like compensated to not appear weak in Travis's eyes. I thought that was really well done by her.
Oh, it's great, and she's a performer that I've really only seen her here in Blake 7 for 4 seasons, and then Doctor Who, the 2 Doctors.
Me too.
But she's someone I really need to seek out more of her work because I really enjoy her presence in both of those shows. And I have to wonder, like, what's she like in just a straight up drama rather than genre TV and stuff. So. Yeah,
me too. Speaking of appearing, I don't know if you noticed anything, but there's a lot of film footage in this.
Yeah,
Travis and Servalan in the tunnels and stuff, and then there's a brief couple of scenes where they actually get into Ensor's place. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you noticed anything, but we never see Travis's face during those scenes.
Oh.
There's a reason for that. Stephen Grief, the actor who played Travis, in between the film scenes, when they shot those on film, and between the next studio session, played tennis, tore his Achilles tendon, and could not walk. So they had to get a body double and basically shoot from the neck down for a couple shots, and they're disguised by trees and leaves and Ensor's lab and stuff, and then Servalan gets a map and plunks it down, and then Travis, Stephen Grief, just sort of does a voiceover for his lines and stuff, but it's not him on there because he couldn't actually physically walk in them. So a lot had to be rejiggered for even that little scene and a half to happen because of a tennis injury.
And is it next season he gets replaced?
He does.
So that's it.
The last
him.
time.
That's
the last time. Yeah.
He didn't even get to finish his final scenes.
No.
Wow.
Sad, isn't it? His last scenes were basically him probably on crutches or in a wheelchair delivering his ADR dialogue. Yeah.
Wow. That's wow. You gonna be ready to shoot next week? We're doing series 2. I don't think so.
I've decided to take up tennis, which is the good news. The bad news is, I won't be walking for 6 months. Yeah,
I won't be able to do Wimbledon and Blake 7.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Because the next day we get another Boucher added to the roster of Blake 7 people, right? That's the guy who replaces him.
It's Croucher, Brian Croucher.
Croucher, not Boucher.
Yeah.
Croucher. An
Oucher.
Oucher. An Oucher.
Yeah. The Oucher named Brian Croucher, yep.
Yes. Interesting. I wonder if that... Is that why they replaced him, or is...
No, I think he just wanted to move on. I think he had a play or something like that, a theater commitment or something, and so I think he carried on with that, or maybe he just felt like he had done what he could with the part. So this was the end of.
Didn't like wearing that thing on my face. The end.
Could have been that too.
That's why I with people in TV nowadays, it's probably different because with computer stuff, but like anytime someone gets like a limb torn off or get something horribly done to their face, they have to wear an eye patch or a scar or something at a show. I'm like, I bet they're gonna get killed off soon. Nobody wants to wear that all the time. Nobody wants to act like they have no hand all the time. Like they're on their way out. But nowadays, it could be different.
Yeah, I think like Patty Considine like wears like a green glove or something to so they could just easily CG out his missing fingers on House of the Dragon. I've never actually looked close enough to know that he is missing fingers, so more Fumli.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. And then Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones, he guys, hey, they found a way to,
that's true. Here, have a hand-sized metal glove on.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah.
That's what they can do. So yeah. Ensor doesn't make it. He dies right as they go to escape. But Callie,
conveniently,
Jan Chappell has a really cold. She says, "I'm sorry, just a little longer. We might have saved you." The line delivery. I don't know if it's supposed to be that way, but it was a really unemotional and unaffecting delivery. I was just like, ooh.
I know. It's kind of like she looked like she pulled a tub of yogurt out of the fridge and it's like 3 days past its due date.
Yeah.
Oh, if it was a little quicker, we might have been able to save you. In the bin it goes. That's pretty much what. Very convenient that this Ensor fell. Oh, sure. Let's go and get Kieran back on the ship. Oh, we died on the way back to the ship. And, it's just, and they didn't even waste time.
Yeah.
Which is the oddest thing. Like, he deteriorated quite quickly and conveniently, might I add, and say, well, I guess Orac's an orphan now, so you got nowhere else to go, so you're coming with us.
Right, there you go, Slowpoke.
Yeah,
I'll take this. So yeah, they go Servalan, Travis, Blake, Callie, Orac, Rock Quarry, showdown.
Yeah.
So we get to at the end. And Servalan's going to give permission to Travis to kill Blake, and then Avon blasts his hand. And he said, Blake goes, "Good shot, Avon." He goes, "I was aiming for his head."
Which is great.
That is a great one.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Blake takes the high road. He doesn't offer. He's not going to kill Travis and Servalan, but he's going to leave them on the planet and send a message to the Federation that the two let him take Orac. And according, from what I know, the Federation would be like, "What's Orac?" Because this isn't
like we've never. This is all under the table here.
Yeah.
We never knew anything about it. Yeah.
He said Orac, Servalan. What is Orac? It must have got cut off the transmission. It was Orac, and I don't know. But yeah, it's kind of weird. I'm like, wait, wasn't Orac like only known by her? And
right.
So, yeah, just kind of thought that was weird. But it was, Blake's a little like, I could take care of this now, or you know what? We're gonna have more seasons, so you guys live.
We can't. I know. There's a lot of times when like Travis leaves Blake alive and vice versa. It's just like, okay, I see how this goes. Robin Hood lets the Sheriff of Nottingham and Guy Gisborne off the hook yet again.
We shall meet again, Skeletor.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, Orac has Ensor's voice, as you mentioned, for this episode, and they hook it up to Liberator, and he claims to have the same personality, a bit snobby, and he says modesty is dishonesty, which that's a bumper sticker.
That totally is a ribbon at a convention or something. I like how he gets Avon to laugh. It almost looks genuine. It almost looks like Paul Darrow's just broken out into laughter during that shot.
And then we gotta get along, Orac. But then Orac says he can see the future. So if you were playing the game, folks, Oracle.
Oracle.
You didn't get that?
I didn't get that. I never thought that.
Yeah.
Wow, I never thought about that.
Oracle. I was like, oh, Terry.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, what an odd thing to say. There are many things I could do. One of them is see the future. Let's see what's going to happen sometime in the future, unspecified.
Next time on Blake 7.
And he shows what looks to be the Liberator blowing up. And it's shot kind of confusingly because they're sort of looking at it. And Jenna goes, "Blake!" And the camera crash zooms in on Blake's face. And then the Liberator, from what we can see, blows up. And for a second there, I'm thinking, is that the Liberator on the screen, or did the Liberator blow up? And nope, time to decipher that now. This episode and the season is ending, and the music crashes in.
But I thought so. When I was watching, it was the shot, like, because they're looking at it through Zen.
Yeah,
and it looked like it was still a circle when the thing blew up. I'm like, so did we just watch the future one blow up? That's the cliffhanger.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but in the future it blows up. So what can we do to avert this?
Yes, true.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what they were going for.
So if Zen counts, then Orac counts. So we have Blake's 8.
For now, we do, I guess. Yeah, it is. It's Blake's, the Hateful Eight. How about that?
Yeah. Was this good? Like, oh, I gotta get back next season cliffhanger.
I mean, it was enticing enough. I was going to come back anyway for it, but maybe other people weren't. But you know what? It got 10.6 million people, which I think was about 1.5 million more than the week before. This series did pretty good ratings right out of the block, and pretty much hovered pretty consistently in the 8 to 10 million range. For the whole season, and good for them. Good for them for and maybe it was timing. People just saw Star Wars in December of '77 and thought, "Hey, space travel! This is fun! Wow, it's a new show, and it looks like it's in space. Let's watch it." And maybe it was just the zeitgeist of science fiction happening in the universe again, and people were sort of drawn to that. I don't know, but it was a bona fide hit right out of the gate.
Yeah. Was this ratings wise? Was this running concurrent or around the time of Key to Time or season 15 or Doctor Who?
Season 15. This is the latter half of season 15. So we're sort of into Invasion of Time territory right here. I think this aired on Monday nights, I think, on BBC One at 7:35. So a later time slot and a different day. Doctor Who was on Saturdays. So they were never in competition with each other. Obviously not because we're both on BBC One. But there wasn't one trailing the other or anything like that. So they were kind of seen as, two rather instantly iconic. And I think actually, judging by the ratings, I think Blake 7 was actually beating Doctor Who in the ratings at this
point.
I think
they're close. If what you were saying with Blake 7, so it looks like it's doing a little better, but they're in the same wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Because Doctor Who's, the season 15 picks up in ratings as it goes. But yeah, Blake 7's doing 8.5. That's right in there. And it's not hitting the lows Doctor Who's hitting in that. Not that Doctor Who was hitting bad lows at that time, but not hitting the lows and hitting higher highs. Maybe, or close to, yeah. But yeah, that's a hit show. That's I mean, I don't know what it was. What was it running against? Did you say already?
I don't know what it was running against on ITV. But on Monday nights, it was part of the staple of programming. So for 13 weeks, it had hit good enough. I don't know when they got their renewal notice for season 2 and for season 3, but I suppose that's something to discuss when we watch those series.
Right,
I'm looking forward to series 2 now a lot more than that
one's got Gambit.
Yes, it does. Oh my God!
If you see one episode of Blake 7, you might not understand what's going on, but
it is not the best 50 minutes of Blake 7 ever, but it is the greatest 50 minutes of Blake 7 ever.
Yes. Oh, so yeah, that's our season here. So overall thoughts on the first season as a whole, yeah.
I liked it. I think the first 3 episodes are superb. I think it stumbles a little bit for a couple before they sort of decide on what they are. After that, it's weird when coming to watch it and then talk about it. I get for some reason I had in the back of my mind, and maybe you had this thought too, is that it was very Servalan and Travis centric in this season, but it wasn't as much. I thought it was more so, but it really wasn't. She sort of comes into her own in the second and third seasons, I think. and in this one, not so much. She's almost more behind the desk, so to speak, than she's even out in the field. She doesn't quite seem as vindictive yet. I sense we'll be getting a little more operatic in season 2. So we kind of get a muted Servalan, but it's interesting to see the genesis of that character, and indeed all the characters.
Yeah, scripts are probably getting commissioned already, stuff like that, but season 2 can actually have a reaction to what has happened in season 1 and, know what's working, what's not. More Servalan, more Travis, keep it going. But yeah, this season, it had a great hook to start. I like like you said, the first 3 episodes. And then it worked its way to a point where I can be enjoying just a rote episode of Blake 7, even if it's not with Travis and Servalan. I can just kind of sit back if it's a week-to-week thing. And I watched all these standalone. I tried to do my best not to, pile on. We recorded these in blocks of 3 and blocks of 2, and I tried not to do back-to-back or 3 in a row at all. And I didn't. I might watch 2 days in a row, but I think that it's quite enjoyable there. Before, when I watched through the series, I would watch multiple episodes, but these shows were only meant to be watched once a week. Maybe on a rerun thing if they had a block and they showed it for 2 hours, which I'm not sure they would have.
Right.
But yeah, I really, even the most bland, average Blake 7, after they kind of start figuring things out better, there's that episode 4 and 5 and maybe 6 kind of are searching for something.
Yeah.
And then they find it. Once they find it, even something weird like the one with the little screaming aliens. What was that one?
The web. Episode 4.
I can get through a web if I know something else is. A web's fine in the middle of something with a duel coming after or something like that. It works.
Yeah,
because it's I'm taking a break from this. I'm going to the Monster of the Week episode, which is something that I think is highly undervalued nowadays in television. And I think people aren't with such heavy serialization. We don't get the Lost episode where Hurley makes a golf course out of stuff on the island, and we sit and just enjoy the characters to build through them. Through that, we get mythology all the time, every time. And
there's a hint of serialization in the first 3 episodes are sort of one piece, so to speak. I think they really sort of follow one from another to another. And then the final 2 are sort of that. And then, stuff happens.
Yeah.
It isn't sort of forgotten about. Whatever's happened to Travis, for instance, isn't just ignored in the next episode.
Right, yes.
There are still ramifications of his failure in the previous appearance of him, so there's a slight, it's not just completely forget it and I hit the reset button, which I think, oddly enough, I think TV gets even more so in the 80s before it finally gets to be a little more serialized. I feel I guess I'm appreciative of that, of the slight serialization of 1970s TV. It's interesting how, I'm just thinking of Star Trek The Next Generation, which is my main experience with 1980s science fiction TV, and it is overtly not serialized. There's an episode where Worf becomes paralyzed, and the end of the episode is him learning to walk again. And the next week, he is fine.
Right.
It's nothing has happened. And that's how the 80s were in syndication for the most part. They said, well, we don't know when these episodes are going to air, so we can't do it at all. And so I like that 1970s TV wasn't quite where TV is now, but it wasn't as standalone or disposable as perhaps we might think it would be.
Yeah, somebody was on the set for all the episodes saying something rather than just new people in, new people out. What script we doing? Yeah. There's obviously we have one writer, so there's one person. Granted, Chris Boucher has his hands all over this, but we have Terry Nation's guideline that he knows what's happening every episode to every person and everything. So there's that going on. That probably helps to some degree to add that. And I was going to say, I've been watching, I have a network TV show again. I've been, as we're recording this, there's only been 3 episodes, but the new Quantum Leap on NBC. And it is, I've been talking to people like off air stuff like about how refreshing it is to watch it because it's TV for one, like honest to goodness TV, and it's serialized, but it is like its episode has its own story. There's a little bit of a hook that gets you episode to episode. That's a bigger plot for like a season, but it's not like a huge focus. And if you, I don't know, like I said, if you miss a week, you're gonna lose out, but you'll be fine. But it's not like in your face that this is the most important thing. It's like, well, it's relaxed. Like you'll get more as it goes. It's food to talk about, but I'm just kind of enjoying that relaxed thing. Like I think people like the old Buffy the Vampire Slayer had serialization down perfect. Like X-Files, they had the serialization down good for television. Granted, heavy serialized shows can be wonderful too, but I'm just like everything is so adherence to like super continuity and always have to be important all the time, and just
it's easier to watch. Just like, you know what, I want to watch an episode of Blake 7. I'm going to watch Gambit. I'm going to watch Countdown, and it's easier just to sort of pick and choose when it's not so heavily serialized. But imagine like I'm going to watch season 3 of Lost, episode 12. Okay, sure. I mean, you don't cherry pick episodes like that just to watch. You feel like you have to binge the entire series, all 7 seasons of it.
Jump on into Game of Thrones and House of Dragon. Just roulette wheel it.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult to do that. Yeah.
It's very, and these show. That's how they picked up new fans all the time, because you could easily access and figure it out. And there's always the whole comic book thing with people like, well, I got to start from the beginning, or, oh, that's intense. Like, I can't just pick up Spider-Man. You can, because you can figure out who the bad guy is. You can figure out who the good guy is. And then you'll fill in the blanks on the past stuff later if you want to. But just pick it up, dive in. And that's, I mean, I don't think any of us first Doctor Who episode was an unearthly child. You jumped in somewhere. That was in there. But yeah, it's just weird to think about, like, how heavily in this kind of, I like this, that there is some serialization to things. They do remember things, but it's not the first priority. Granted, it used to be, all right, we got 13 episodes, fill them. Make that space stuff. So, but yeah, I like it. Matt, any favorite characters of yours so far?
I mean, the regular cast are great. I like Avon. It's having seen the entire series, I know that Avon gets even better.
Yep.
And I think the writers are also kind of they're just sort of getting to the cusp of what he's about towards the end of this season. And I like seeing the genesis of all that. I think so with Villa too, actually. I think they're all sort of, it can sometimes when you're creating like 6 lead characters, you sort of like, here's all they are, and you almost like overpopulate them with character traits and everything, and that kind of gets whittled down and forgotten about. But here it's really, I think it sort of builds up. I think we have a long way to go to sort of flesh these characters out a little more,
Yeah, I easily Servala and Travis, like them. I like Callie. We're not given a lot about. We'll get more on her later, but like, I think the actor just kind of plays it really interesting as she goes around stuff. She's probably my favorite person of all of them to go walk around searching for things. I don't know why. Like, that's a lot of the show. Like, we land somewhere, we look for things, or we meet these people, and she's not human. She's not human in the same sense as our other characters. She's got a telepathy thing that they kind of like dropped for the last few episodes. But the way Jan Chappell portrays it and can play the genre stuff of searching around, combat, things like that is probably tops maybe of the group for me. And of course, Avon. Yeah, we all like Avon.
Yeah. Yeah, we sort of joke about poor Gan. Poor Gan just doesn't have as much to do. I don't dislike anybody in the cast. I'm kind of sad that they don't always have some some helpful aspect to the story. Sometimes it feels like they're too heavily sort of crowbarring these characters in.
Yeah, Gan became a humorous point of, man, they're really not doing anything with him, and it's probably a writer's room thing, not a actor thing.
Yeah,
if anything, they did try to give him that thing about killing the guy who killed his wife or something like that.
Yeah,
eye for an
killed my woman, I believe he said.
His woman, yes. His woman, his claim, his property. But yeah, so yeah, he's the thing. Any favorite episodes from this season?
I mean, I've always liked episode 2, Spacefall. It's so gritty and so brutal in the way that the guards treat the prisoners in that. I think it's just a really taut drama. That one's a good one. I liked Seek, Locate, Destroy. I liked the Star Wars one. I can't remember the name of the one.
Project Avalon. Yeah,
Project
I have that one in there as one of mine. Yeah.
Mission to Destiny is a very odd one-off murder mystery for Blake 7. It doesn't feel like at all what the show is supposed to be about, but it's an entertaining romp. Honestly, apart from the web,
yep,
and I think that's probably my least favorite one. I think that's it's an easy pick for me. I think all of them are certainly still watchable though. What about you?
Oh yeah, sure. Project Avalon. I like Duel.
Duel
with
too.
The Two Gods. Let's see here. Seek, Locate, Destroy was good because it's just a great introduction to Travis and Servalan. The first three, of course, Brian Blessed and Cygnus Alpha is a treat, and of course Pamela Salem. It's great there. The Web and Time Squad was the rough patch of this.
Yeah,
the show, and then after that, it's pretty rock solid the rest of the way through. I wasn't. Was it Breakdown? I don't think the one with Julian Glover was a bit disappointing because you had Julian Glover. But yeah,
didn't have him in there until the last third of the episode.
Right. So yeah, I'd say aside from that, everything's pretty good. Project Avalon, Duel, probably my tops. I like the opening three. The opening three, this show's better than that, but it's kind of like that the rock solid start like the Ninja Turtles cartoon had. It was like real good stuff for like the first like 6-7 episodes, and then just junk after that. So
wow,
that's so go back and watch them, folks that are going to argue with me. Mm-hmm. I once had a day in QC where I got really excited about a season of Ninja Turtles, was handed it, and then was struggled to get through a disc because they crammed them on there, and I was like, hey, anybody want to do disc 2? Trade somebody?
No one took you up. No,
nobody took me up on it, and it was a big season too. It was like one of those animated seasons that had like 40 episodes. Like, so, yeah, we won't be doing Ninja Turtles on Old Space. It won't be Old Sewer Show at all. So, yeah. But, yeah, Blake 7, excited when we return to do Series 2 at some point here in the future. But, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on for this. I had a blast going through this, talking about aspects of television production, British television production, always linking stuff back to Doctor Who. It's been a blast for this season.
It's been fun. Thanks for inviting me along this ride. I've never had a chance to talk about Blake 7 on a podcast or anywhere really before. So this has been fun. This has been fun. I'm really looking forward to season 2, and I'm not going to watch it until it's time to talk about it to sort of build up that anticipation.
All right, excellent. I will get on hurrying up through the next Old Space show to get back to Blake 7. So one last time, let people know where they can keep up with you.
I'm on Twitter at Lakeopolis. I also do Doctor Who podcasts. You can remember Doctor Who? That was a show. I do 3 of them: Radio Free Scarl, Lazy Doctor Who, and The Memory Cheats.
Doctor Who might be more talked about by the time this drops. I'm going to think about it.
Here's hoping.
It might be.
Yeah.
It might be. All right. So next time, hashtag KitKatJam. You can figure that out. Figure it out. But it won't be on space. It'll be on Earth. But man, that car is out of this world. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at BrandonPorkHD. Written work at YSOBlue.com. There's more from the Brandon Peters Show. Continuing on with the Tim Burton retrospective with Scott Middleton and myself, and maybe sometimes some special guests, but from Old Space.
If it takes all my life, I will destroy you, Blake. I will destroy you. Once again, I will destroy you.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at BrandonPetersShow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at BrandonPetersShow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.